And now for something completely random.
Well, it's that time of the year again. The year of jokes, fooling around, and possible emotional trauma. You know what? I gotta do something new. I gotta do something random. I gotta do something that'll make my audience ask, why even? I can't just review another miraculous episode. I gotta do something for this momentous occasion. Come on, gods of animation. What do you got for me?
Word Girl!
Happy April Fools, everybody. Yeah, this is a thing I'm doing. Now, for those who aren't aware, Word Girl is an edutainment show on PBS Kids that centers around an alien from the planet Lexicon named Word Girl, who crashes onto Earth with her partner and famous Lexicon Air Force pilot, a monkey named Captain Huggy Face. Well, at least it ain't Face Hugger. And fights crime all the while teaching the city and kids to some extent complex words and keeping her identity a secret as she tries to live a normal life. So this might be a bit out of my jurisdiction / age range. I mean, this was aimed at 4 to 9 year olds, probably more so than Miraculous. And I wasn't nearly as invested in this show as something like the Upside Down show, which also taught words but lasted a short time and might have influenced my personality more than I would like to admit. So why am I covering this for my April Fool's special? Well, because it's kinda seeing a bit of a resurgence in popularity. I'm not kidding. In 2022, this show's kind of been brought back into the spotlight with some out of context clips and other videos showing how legitimately funny this show is. And I don't mean in a sort of, oh, this is hilariously bad, let's laugh and cringe at it sort of way. No, it's actually got some pretty decent jokes behind it. And this wasn't by accident. The creator of the show, Dorothy Gillum, set out to create a children's show that was not only educational and entertaining for kids, but something the adults could watch to support their development. In one interview, she said, "Part of my mission is to make kids' television smart and funny. I feel as though we've lost some ground there in an effort to make it more accessible. Word Girl's focus is on great stories, characters, and animation. If all those elements are working, then you can hook a child who may come looking for laughs, but leave a little smarter." This woman has nothing but my utmost respect. Nice job. And so rather than get writers who worked on children's shows, she got writers who worked on Family Guy and The Onion. And honestly, it shows. I mean, in a world without Word Girl, there is a warning on the back of a cake mix box that says not to electrocute it or else the cake will become enchanted. Why would a box of cake mix feel the need to warn you about—
because it's magic?
It always finds a way to creep back into my life. And there are some pretty big names in the voice cast, and I'm not just talking about Greta Lyle or Tom Kenny. But there are other comedians and actors like Darren Norris, Chris Parnell, Cree Summer, Maria Bamford, Kristen Schaal, shout out to the Gravity Falls fans in the audience, Weird Al Yankovic, Patton Oswalt, the late Ed Asner, even Jane Lynch lent her voice for the 4-part special,
The Rise of Miss Power.
Like I said, I never really spent a lot of time on this show. I only ever saw a little bit of A World Without Word Girl. But after sitting down and watching some episodes, I gotta admit, this is a pretty tight show and I kinda like it. So unlike other shows I've covered, this is far more expansive, spreading across 8 seasons, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to cover it all, so which episode do I review? Well, after much consideration, I've decided to cover the episode Two Brains Forgets. Why this episode?
Listen for the words quarrel and identity.
Let's just cover Two Brains Forgets. And side note, I absolutely hate the design of this new Coke can. I mean, seriously, center your freaking font. So we open our episode in the lair of one of the many villains in Word Girl's rogues gallery, and my personal favorite, Dr. Two Brains, voiced by Tom Kenny, who's also— he's Tom freaking Kenny. Do I even have to list his credentials? Minus the ones that should probably be forgotten. This guy's actually got quite the backstory. He was originally Word Girl's scientist friend named Dr. Boxlighter, who was pretty kind and well-meaning, and even gave Word Girl some helpful advice. But while making a mind-reading device, his test mouse hits a holy cow don't press this button. Like, why would you even have that? And their minds fused into Dr. Two Brains, one for thinking and the other for obsessing over cheese, thankfully not exclusive to Camembert. His box Lightner persona would occasionally pop back up in the shorts, almost like a Jekyll and Hyde character, but in the show, it's Two Brains all the time. And for his evil plot in this episode, he decides to be an eavesdropper and create a really big mechanical ear, which he calls
The really big mechanical ear.
Genius! This is meant for listening to every conversation to hear about cheese events so he can steal the cheese before the events begin. He does strike liquid gold, however, one of the henchmen fiddles around with the dials and...
You can't possibly want new Word Girl and Huggy uniforms. Becky! Bob!
This is gonna be one of those days, people. Yep, this is another identity reveal story. Granted, there are plenty of those in this series. I mean, the series finale has Word Girl reveal herself to her friend, and it's way more emotional than you would expect from a show like this. But this one strikes a nerve with me the most. This is basically Word Girl's Lady Wi-Fi. Even though Lady Wi-Fi came out after. You know what I mean. Granted, it's a different story from Lady Wi-Fi. I mean, in this one, the villain knows the hero's identities and is trying to reveal it to her parents, as opposed to the villain trying to figure out the hero's identities and reveal it to everyone. Make no mistake though, this has its own brand of pain for someone like me, and I'll get to it shortly. So yeah, Dr. Two Brains finds out Word Girl, voiced by Dana Fairman, who's done some work in The Fairly OddParents, Phineas and Ferb, and even Mass Effect as Avina, is Becky Botsford, and decides to head over to her house to confirm it for himself. This is the point of no return, people, so strap yourselves in. So we cut to the Botsford's house, where we see the special kind of stupid that runs in the family. We got Becky's brother TJ, voiced by Tom Kenny, who's
I want a new sister, one that's cool like Word Girl.
an absolute twerp to Becky, yet idolizes Word Girl. Trust me, it gets worse. Her dad Tim, voiced by Ryan Raditz, who's written for 33 episodes of this show, as well as stuff like A Mighty Wind, The Crazy Ones, and The Ellen DeGeneres Show. And in this episode, he specializes in green bean architecture. I didn't even know that was a thing, alongside Captain Hippy Dippy, or Bob, and
I got a C in art class on my painting of William Shakespeare.
And a fine president he was.
And yes, it gets worse. And Sally, voiced by Maria Bamford, a comedian who's done work for Arrested Development, Adventure Time, Cat Dog, and BoJack Horseman, who's probably the least stupid of the bunch, but it isn't really saying much. As when Dr. Two Brains arrives, rather than panicking and trying to keep him out, she and Tim are oddly fascinated and excited to have a supervillain at their house and decide to let him in. Well, I won't say that this is too out of the ordinary. I mean, one time I cosplayed as the Huntsman in an Office Depot and nobody batted an eye. No kidding. Eventually, he does let out that Becky is Word Girl and...
You're right.
It only gets worse from here, people.
Wow, an evil villain and a sense of humor.
Clearly you haven't heard of Aku and Hades. Of course, Dr. Two Brains asks the obvious questions like, how come you never see Word Girl and Becky in the same place at the same time?
Because Word Girl is too cool to be seen with a geek like my sister?
Zip it, TJ! And he also points out they look so much alike. Oh my god, I feel validated! Thank you!
They don't look anything alike.
Zip it, TJ!
TJ's right, Word Girl has that red outfit and cape.
But give Becky the red outfit and a cape and what do you get? Becky playing dress up. No, really, that's what he thinks Becky is doing here in Super Grounded.
You think you can sneak out and play dress up without doing as you're told?
My faith in humanity is non-existent!
And even questions how Word Girl and Becky have similar monkey sidekicks. Look, the point that I'm trying to make is the family is far less sane than the actual mad scientist of this show. And depending on your tolerance for this kind of trope, you're either all for this, or you're getting drunk off of caffeinated sugary beverages like I am. I mean, for God's sake, she flat out tells her dad and brother that she's Word Girl, and even gives a backstory as to how she and Captain Hoopity-Doo ended up crashing onto Earth, and they still don't believe her! Thank you, Gang of Secrets, for not pulling this stunt on me. But when basic questions sane people would ask don't work, he decides to coax the word girl out of Becky with a malapropism, replacing identity with
Identify me?
a combination of identity and infamy that doesn't exist. But Becky beats the system with the power of
Dictionary
and looks up the word just to save face. So with no other option, Dr. Two Brains decides that the best thing he could possibly do is give up, admit he's wrong, and pull a fast one on them.
Oops.
Major oops. Seriously, I've heard of pulling the rug out from underneath them. I've never heard of pulling the tablecloth out from underneath them. Yep, Word Girl's identity is revealed. She and her family are now trapped in string cheese, and TJ apologizes to Becky for being
And now that I know your true identity, I'm giving you back all my word girl stuff.
Or not. He can be an absolute twerp again. Seriously, dude, your sister is an alien from another planet with super strength, the ability to fly, and is a dictionary with feet! All is right in the world. He got his validation, and now to spread the word.
It's lightning quick, amnesia-causing rays.
I mean, good on this episode for preparing me for disappointment and practically spoiling how it's going to turn out. But that doesn't make it any less painful to witness. So yeah, TJ's bitterness and Boomerang makes the Ray hit a mirror, the Botsfords, Two Brains, and the Henchmen forget episode over, ending a Frightening Gale review. Okay, maybe that wasn't the best episode to poke at / review. You know what? Let's cover its companion episode, Banned on the Run. Maybe that'll be a bit less painful.
Listen for ban and restore.
What do you mean Star Wars The Specialized is illegal now? So we opened this episode on a plastic cup throwing festival. Was an alternate name for this the Day of the Litter Bugs? And the mayor's about to begin this festival with the ceremonial throwing of the plastic cup. It's just the plastic cup. I mean, what's so special about it? Is it yellow? Is it the dark patch underneath? Suddenly a guy with a top hat, a mustache, and a mask. This is a new one. Usually the mask would be used to hide one's identities, but here it practically makes it obvious on who it is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Big. No, no, no. Okay, you're just messing with me now. Voiced by Jeffrey Tambor, who's not only done some work for Arrested Development and Transparent, but also did voice work on Trolls, Tangled, and even the SpongeBob movie where he played the Bald King Neptune. Sending! Dude, you might as well be from the future because this is a chrome dome if I ever saw it. And honestly, he does somewhat of a good job with his performance. It's just a shame that he has... Yikes. Anyways, Mr. Big is a self-proclaimed evil corporate businessman, which is kind of redundant. I mean, he's a corporate businessman. That already tells me he's evil. Who owns his own company called Mr. Big Industries, which specializes in mind control, as evidenced by his company's mission statement, which just says straight up,
We strive to constantly use mind control.
how come he hasn't been shut down yet? And he and his assistant Leslie, also voiced by Maria Bamford, who's a lot more expressive in this episode, but would get more and more monotone sounding up until season 2, where it sounds like she's reading her lines while laying her head on her hand, though this was probably deliberate. Brainwash the mayor into accepting his cup throwing challenge and giving him complete control of the city if he wins. Wait a minute, he can do that?
Actually, he can. It's one of the town laws.
Who was the numbnut who came up with that law? And can I have what he's smoking because I really need to know what led him to do such a thing. Oh, by the way, that's Chris Parnell as the narrator. He'll occasionally pop up to narrate the story, but he also does break the fourth wall sometimes, and this does lead to a few funny moments from him. I'd rather not spoil any of them, you'll just have to watch them for yourself. So the challenge begins and the mayor gives up entirely.
Yeah, score.
And then Mr. Big throws it with all of his might, not only beating the mayor, but outright humiliating him in every sense of the word. Or he could just give up almost entirely. It's like giving up entirely, except with a bit more commitment. You know, just to completely humble himself while still beating the mayor completely. Just adds less salt in the wound. So Mr. Big wins and the mayor gives him control of the city.
I am no longer mayor, and I will leave now. Goodbye.
When I get back into power, I am sacking the person who didn't remind me to get that law changed. So now that he's mayor, he decides to use his power to restore the city to its former glory, and by that, I mean make everyone miserable. And his first order of business? Ordering a pizza! Oh, and banning Word Girl.
Word girl!
Wordgirl, I hereby ban you from the city!
You clearly don't know how to banish someone. Gazpacho, if you may do the honors.
I banish thee! See, you put your arm into it. More emphatic.
However, while she and Captain Happy Pants are banned, Becky and Bob aren't. There's always a loophole in this sort of thing. So Mr. Big uses his power to make laws that only serve to make people suffer, like banning negative press against him, forcing Todd Ming, or Scoops as he's more well known as, also voiced by Ryan Raditz, to write glowing stories about him, like how he discovered the moon. Okay, we're one step away from this turning into North Korea.
Mr. Big is excited to tell everyone about how he invented ham.
And that step has been taken. Nice job, Mr. Big. And changing the casual hello to...
Quack, quack. Raspberries.
Okay, that's not a greeting, that's a desperate attempt to cheer us up after we witnessed our parents die in front of us. Seriously, can we even call this guy evil?
No one shall blink for the next 30 minutes.
On second thought, yes, we can.
But eventually, Becky does come up with a plan to stop Mr. Big, expose him for cheating, remove him from office, and possibly get back Tim's tie that he stole named Murray.
He names all his ties. It's strange.
Oh, come on, it's not that far-fetched. I mean, Theater Critic named his tie Yosepi Masiga Boda, and if you're wondering how to spell it, here it is. The less you ask, the better. Back to Mayor Mr. Big's office. Mr. is his first name now. Get used to it.
Tuesday will be called Wednesday, and Wednesday will be called Froggy Ping Pong.
I'm honestly surprised he didn't go all the way and rename Thursday to Tuesday, Monday to Saturday, and Sunday to Gloom Day, because the weekend is over and there ain't no joy or sunniness to be found here! Becky walks in to fill in for Mr. Scoops.
Say, when did you get a job at the paper?
Our hero, and tries to coax the info out of Mr. Big by asking if his charisma and cunningness make up for his lack of good planning skills. To which Mr. Big replies he does have good planning skills, including admitting he brainwashed the mayor into giving him power and taking control of the city out loud. Probably not the best idea in the world. I mean, what if the police and the mayor happen to find out, speak of the devil, they heard the whole thing?
Well, most of it.
So Mr. Big loses the position as mayor, but decides to make a getaway by distracting him and the cops with the squishy bunny he got earlier. However, Word Girl and Captain Hoppy Brain, okay, this gag isn't going to work out in the long run, decide to step in to take him down. After he distracts Word Girl with his top hat, which he wore specifically because he thought all mayors wore top hats, and because it kept his hair warm, she pulls an odd job and throws it at a water fountain, spraying Mr. Big into the bin where he belongs. And so our episode ends with the mayor thanking Word Girl, Mr. Big being dragged to jail, and Tim getting Murray back. Yay. So that was Band on the Run. How's it hold up? It was pretty solid. I mean, the setup's pretty simple and kind of hard to complain about. The jokes land really well, and the animation's not necessarily a strong point of the show, but it's good enough for a kid's show like this. As for teaching words, it does a good job at it, getting the definition of a word across without hammering it into the kids' skulls as if it was a nail. Admittedly, when defining the word ban, it does seem like a big, hey, this is what the word means moment, but it's not too bothersome. As for Two Brains Forgets, I mean, of course I find it painful, but given that it's me, it's kind of a given. I mean, with the family stupidity, Two Brains Forgetting, and zip it, TJ! How could I not be annoyed? And it also could be argued that it would have been a lot smarter for Dr. Two Brains to just reveal Word Girl's identity to everyone, rather than, well, do what he does in here. To be fair, it also does a good job at teaching words. The fact that the family isn't bothered by and even admire Dr. Two Brains is pretty funny. And of course, Tom Kenny is a joy to listen to. It's still an entertaining episode in its own right, and I do recommend it alongside Band on the Run. Just know what you're getting yourself into. And that's the end of that review. Now, first off, I want to say I'm sorry for missing the April Fool's mark, and second, I'm not sure if I'm going to cover more Word Girl episodes. I mean, I didn't necessarily cover everything this show has to offer. I mean, there's a game show segment called May I Have a Word that I didn't cover, mostly because there's not really much to talk about, though it does provide some comedic value. But I do want to keep this April Fool's special thing going. I want to cover more random things that make you question what is wrong with me. So with that said, this is ASLB, and I've got nothing else to say other than the inner id of Plutonia is an enigma of endless monogamy. Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will be checking them. And be sure to check out my social media for more ASLB. I'll see you all next time.
Come again! Don't be a stranger!
Mom!